Alright, this is the video for the second play from the key. It's not a very long play, but I do think it requires a little bit of explanation. I've also included a prop today, and I'll explain what that's for in a minute, but let me read to you the play. So last week we extended out to long point as a provoking action, so we kind of have the initiative. This week we're extending out to long point as a reaction, a defensive reaction. So let me read to you the play. Now, secondly, if your opponent does not lie in a posture but crowds on you with cuts, whether he cuts from above or below, from the right or left, then note when he cuts in and again shoot the long point in before you at his face, and as you thrust, turn your long edge against his incoming cut. Now, when you have caught his cut on the forte of your long edge, then remain hard on his blade and wind quickly in and out at his head. But if he goes quickly away from your blade to cut against the other side, then cut or flake at his head or his arms while he is still bringing his sword around. Then quickly rush back with the bind on his sword, and think all the time of chasing, slicing, wrenching, and deceiving. So what Meyer is telling us is that we have come into this key position, and rather than extend out as a provoking action, they defend and we hit them where they came from. Now they are attacking us. But our initial motion is going to be the same. I'm going to defend myself by extending out into long point, turning my lead edge, point at their face, so that I'm catching their cut on the forte of my sword. From there, he talks about winding in and out. That's why I have the SEA glaive here today, because if you're not familiar with this, it can be a little weird, and we want to make sure that we're winding safely. So I'm gonna actually talk about this piece kind of independently, and then I'll give you the mental shorthand and run through how I practice it. So this glaive here is going to represent my opponent's sword. So if I'm in key and now I've extended out and we're in this bind position, if I leave to do something, right, I don't have very good control of their weapon. So maintaining contact, I can turn my back edge and hit them with an onside attack, hitting them in their left ear, while my sword stays in contact with their sword the whole time. This keeps me safe while I throw this back edge. I can also turn my true edge to hit them on the right ear, maintaining contact so that my back edge is still in contact. So if you see, I'm keeping pressure so that my opponent's sword ends up kind of in the little V of my blade in quillions. This is important, especially with this kind of turning to the inside, because if I lose pressure to try to hit them, right, I'm going to get stabbed right in the face. This is no good. So just make sure when you're practicing, once we've gotten to the long point, we're going to maintain contact, and you're going to really just turn your back edge and your hips to generate power, so you don't need to come off of the sword. So just make sure we're doing this, and if we're going to the other side, I definitely like to step and get my head off the line, but I'm going to end up with my true edge hitting their right ear. My back edge is still against their sword, and that puts their pressure into the quillion. So that's what keeps me safe on that side. And that's what Meyer's talking about, winding in and out. And these are kind of flicks. These are cuts to the scalp. In an SEA context, I have a pretty good time landing this back edge cut with pressure with good power. This inside cut can be harder to land with power. So the other option, of course, if we're being more lethal, is we wind up and we just stab them. But the point that we're keeping pressure on the weapon to keep our line covered is very, very important. And that's if they stay hard on the bind. So they come in with a very committed cut. There's that moment of pressure, and you can turn in or turn out and hit them behind their sword, keeping your sword on theirs so that you are staying safe. And the other option, Meyer says, is if they cut around. So they've cut in and now they're cutting around. If I've extended to this long point, I'm going to turn in and try to smack them either in the arms or the head, and then back onto the sword just to be safe. So the mental shorthand for this one is key, extend to long point to parry, wind in and out, or key, extend to long point to parry, cut across, back down onto the sword. So the play itself is not particularly long. It's just important to really kind of talk about what that winding in and out means. I will say that when I practice this myself, I don't tie a pole onto my pelt. I can kind of picture it. And when we're doing it in the club, we do a lot of winding in and out drills with pressure against the sword, and when it's a partner drill. But if you're by yourself, especially if this is a new concept, find a stick or a pipe or a sword, or in this case I have my SEA glaive. So you can just practice, once you've got this bind, hitting them with the back edge, never letting your sword come off, and then hitting them with the front edge. And again, never letting your sword come off of this weapon, so that you're always hitting behind their sword, but keeping contact so that you're safe. So play with those. If this one is problematic for you, please send me questions. I love questions. Otherwise, we will get into the hanging point next week.